This is Matt Carty, the Sinn Féin TD for Cavan Monaghan. Unfortunately, due to the coronavirus that has ensured that we can't bring our public meetings to you in your community. So instead what we're trying to do is bring you to our public meetings, and here on Facebook in about 20 minutes we're going to be broadcasting live, and I'm going to be joined by Owen O'Brien, Pierce Doherty, Louise O'Reilly and Sinn Féin President Mary Lou MacDonald. So we're asking you to send any of your comments or questions. We'll try to get to as many of them as possible, but this is going to be a really interesting initiative. I'm looking forward to it and we're hoping you can tune in. See you then. I'm always weary, like I'm like Brian Dobson after that. Dave Galair tá fáilte wrote, we're here in Dublin in 44 Parnell Square, the Sinn Féin head office. As you know, unfortunately, as a result of the coronavirus, we're no longer able to bring our public meetings to you and your community. So instead, we decided to bring you to the public meetings, and we're going to try this initiative because, as you know, Sinn Féin do things differently, and one of the key planks of our commitment to you during the recent general election campaign was that we would stay engaged with you and that we would listen to the wants and the concerns of the people who entrusted us with their support, and beyond that, in fact. So my name's Matt Carty, I'm the Sinn Féin TD for Cavan Monaghan, and this evening I'm joined by Louise O'Reilly, who's the Sinn Féin spokesperson on health, Pearse Doherty, who's our finance spokesperson, Owen O'Brien, who is our spokesperson on housing, and of course our party president, Mary Lou MacDonald. We want you to send us in your questions and comments. We're going to try to get to as many as possible. We've already had thousands of people from across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the Sinn Féin website as well. This is, I suppose, a reflection of the success of the public meetings themselves. So the first question that I have in here, and I'll, as I say, try to get to as many as possible. There's Aidan on Instagram who's asking me to ask Mary Lou, how does it feel to have the backing and support of such a large first preference voters? It must be satisfying to know that people want change, Aidan says.
Well, hey Aidan, thank you so much for that question. And can I just say hello to everybody who's tuned in. We are delighted to have you with us. Tell your friends that this is going on because it's so important for us to hear from all of you. The short answer is that it feels fantastic to know that so many people want change and that so many people were prepared, despite their cynicism and maybe bad experiences in the past with politics, to come out to vote and to learn the power of voting to drive change. So we're not complacent about it, Aidan. I mean, we're activists. We are people who choose this life in politics because we really, really believe that we can make Ireland better, that we can deliver a just society, a fair society, that we can actually deliver a united Ireland. I believe that we're the generation who are going to do that, and the campaign for the election was incredible. We met literally with thousands of people right across the state who told us, each in their own way, the many, many ways in which Ireland can be better, that Ireland can change, and the best bit is that they're up for it. So we are political leaders. We have a job to do in all of this, but I want to say to you, Aidan, we're all in this together. And I want to say also to people, this movement for change will never be too big. So we need more and more people, more and more momentum. And I'm absolutely sure that we're going to succeed. I'm absolutely sure that we're going to win because we've got the wind in our sails and we've got right on our side.
We're going to talk about some of the issues and how we actually deliver on some of the things that Mary Lou has been said. But Louise, as you can imagine, we're getting tons of stuff in relation to the coronavirus. I'll just give you a sort of a sense of the questions that are coming in. There's a Michael Dowley in Carrick-on-Shore is asking, why are all flights from badly affected areas not already grounded? There's a Siobhan Riley who's asked, why are football fixtures even going ahead? Adrian Butler in Dublin is asking, could facilities be made available for non-frontline staff of hospitals to work from home? So you get a sense there's a lot of concern out there.
There is, and I'm very conscious that today somebody died, so our sympathies and our thoughts are with their family and with their friends at this time. And of course, we also want to pay tribute to our healthcare workers, the healthcare staff who are out there on the front line delivering care 24/7. On our behalf. You know, this is a very, very trying time. We have had a lot of people contacting us in relation to the coronavirus, and we have been in touch with An Taoiseach Mary Lou, and I met with the Taoiseach and the Minister for Health and representatives from other parties on Monday. We made it very, very clear that we believe efforts need to be ramped up. We need to see more testing. We need to see more contact tracing. We need more information put into the public domain, and we need a decision to be taken with regard to mass gatherings. It does not make any sense that they have cancelled St. Patrick's Day, but they haven't cancelled other gatherings, and we need that advice to be issued without delay. We know that people are concerned, we know that people are worried, and we are working with other political parties to ensure that we get as much information into the public domain as we can. And we are at the table. It's important that we're at the table because we are the voice for working people, we're the voice for the marginalised. We are your voice at the government table, and we are making sure that your queries, your concerns and the things that you really care about are made known to the powers that be, because they have to act. and they have to listen to those people. So we believe now is the time for urgent action. We believe that action needs to be ramped up. We need to see more activity in our communities, and we also need to see more healthcare staff recruited as a matter of absolute urgency. We also want people to be facilitated with income protection so that they can self-isolate and know that they are not going to be penalised. We want employers to step up to the plate and to play their part. We know this is a very worrying time. We know that people are very concerned, and we are ensuring that your views are represented. But now is the time for action. We need to see clear guidance on gatherings. We need to see clear guidance on self-isolation, and we need to know that the government are going to work for the people, and that's why Mary Lou and I will continue our engagements with An Taoiseach and the Minister for Health, and we will ensure that your voice is represented at that table.
The big question that people have been asking is in relation to schools. What's our engagement been with the Department of Education and Health on that?
Okay, so we all know that the school holidays are coming up. I think consideration has to be given now to moving those forward, because parents are very, very concerned, and we know that Mary Lou herself has been through this. What we want to see is action, because at the moment everybody is talking about the schools being closed, but they're not getting any guidance from the Department of Education. That has to be issued. The simple fact is kids are going to be on holidays soon. We believe that the time is right now to consider bringing those holidays forward to ensure that we give ourselves the best chance to halt the spread of this virus, that we act as a community and we ensure that we take collective action, and that everybody has the information and the facility to play their part. So it's obvious that people are asking that question. I believe that parents are ahead of the government on this. I think they're ahead of many of us on this issue, and they are already talking themselves. They need that clear guidance. It's a fact the holidays are coming up, so I think it makes sense that that those holidays will be moved forward.
Okay, good point. Pierce, I just want to move on, because while obviously the coronavirus is on all our minds, you're still leading a set of negotiations, probably more questions than any, so we don't want to get into the process, and we clearly have to keep an eye to the politics, but again, just to give you some of the sense of them, there's Colleen Marie Sloan is asking whether we think there's going to be another election. Elizabeth Clark in Cavan is asking the team, what can we do as the Irish people that voted for Sinn Féin, help to support, get Sinn Féin into government, because as Elizabeth says, I for one cannot endure another Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael government to run the country for another 4 or 5 years. There's Kathleen Farrell in Kildare, says ask Mary Lou to put her mind at rest that you will not allow Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael to form a government 4 more years of saddles on the back of ordinary workers. So Pierce, this is a good opportunity maybe just to give a background in terms of where we're at with the negotiations.
I agree with those comments, and Elizabeth in particularly when she talks about Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael going back into government. This was a huge election for change. People came out, we remember it, through the storm. Kieran came out in their hundreds of thousands and voted for change. They gave a huge mandate to our party, but they also gave a mandate to other parties who got that bounce from change, and a number of the independents. So over the last 3 weeks, we've been trying to bring together those voices, those parties, and deliver a programme that would mean real change. And what that really means is building the houses that we need to deal with the crisis and homelessness, and the fact that a generation is locked out. It means freezing and reducing rents. It means having the right to retire at the age of 65. It means dealing with the climate crisis. It means making sure that workers and families have a break. So there's been a lot of progress over the last period. We knew, and it was very clear, we said this during the election campaign, that Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil would want it to return to the status quo, would want to go back into government, would want to keep hold of power. Our job is to make sure that that doesn't happen. It's also responsibility of other parties and independents to step up to the mark and make sure that doesn't happen as well. So you can rest assured that we're doing everything in our power to bring that government for change about, to make sure that the mandate that we got, the hope that is out there, that hundreds of thousands of people have, that is delivered. And our team have been engaging today. We're back in talks with a number of the parties tomorrow, and we'll continue this to try and get that government for change brought about.
I think most people instinctively would have known that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael would easily go into government together. They basically have the same policies. They're essentially the same party. But together, and this is what made this election so seismic, together they only have 72 seats. They're still 8 short of a majority. Who in their right mind would actually bring them above the line?
Look, well, that's a clear thing, and like the interesting thing is Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have been in 3 days of negotiations now. I don't think it takes that long to figure out who's going to be Taoiseach first, because their policies are the same and their policies are aligned in relation to all of this here. Look, I think it would be a very negative step for any party to decide that after this huge seismic election, which was transformative in terms of the political landscape here, that somehow that they would read into it that the result of this here is to put Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil back in government. And it's not just about those two parties. It's about, we know and the public know out there that these parties lack the ambition, the energy, the enthusiasm or the commitment to deal with the housing crisis, to deal with the health crisis, or to make sure that workers and families are given a break. So look, we've been in conversations with every party who's engaging with us. We've had very good conversations, but we're very mindful that Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are practicing the politics of exclusion. They got a hammering from the electorate. They're suffering as a result of that, but they want to hold on to power for as long as they can. Things are changing, as Mary Lou said. And one of the questions that was there is, what can people do? Be part of this conversation, be part of us. It's not just about be part of this conversation. Come and join Sinn Féin, be part of the change, be part of the type of transformative change that we want to bring about, not just here in the 26 counties, but across the island of Ireland. This is the decade where we are going to write a new history for our island. This is the decade where we have a real chance of changing things for the better for ordinary people and for our region. So be part of it. So join the party and be part of the change that's taken place.
I think everyone knows that, and you'll all have seen that in the election was extraordinary for lots of reasons, but the politics of exclusion that Pearse has referred to was writ large for the whole thing. So they spent the whole campaign trying to find ways to exclude and to marginalise Sinn Féin, and that didn't work. And now they're looking for ways to exclude and marginalise not just Sinn Féin, but the people who voted for Sinn Féin. So I just want to reassure everybody who's part of this meeting this evening that we have not tolerated and we will not tolerate people who vote for us being considered as second-class citizens, second-class voters. We know that you voted for us because you want us to deliver a new government. We know that this is something much, much bigger than a protest vote. But we also know that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael would do everything that they can to keep us out. And in keeping us out, they're keeping you out. I mean, that's the reality.
Are you surprised, because I have to say I am, in how much the politics of the campaign has been built upon in the weeks and days and weeks after the election campaign? I was struck by one of the interviews I was doing, and the commentator says, when I was talking about housing and health and all the things that need to be fixed, he said the election's over. There's such a tradition in this. Have all the debates around the policy issues. As soon as the election's over, just talk about numbers. But the fact that the politics is still there. So
there's the thing, and even in that, Matt, isn't that a very significant change? So we said to you, we said, give us the chance. We said, judge us on delivery. As I was going into the count centre with Michelle O'Neill and with Denise Mitchell, and it was a huge scrum. And even before I got to the count centre, I had made calls to other parties of change saying, listen, what are we going to do? Let's get it together. So from the word go, we didn't skip a beat to try and make that change happen. But we talked about the housing issue that Owen led out on, cutting rents and freezing them, the biggest public housing programme in the history of the state, getting the pension age back to 65, dealing with issues in the health service. And we're never going to stop talking about those issues. We are never going to give up on those changes. And those weren't election issues for us. Those are society issues for us.
Well, on that, because there's a guy called Joe who's from Kerry. He's asking us on Twitter, because we're on Twitter as well and Instagram as well as Facebook. But Joe has asked, how can we expect change when it looks like the party of the landlords and the party of the property speculators are coming together to form a government? So I think, if nothing else, that's a clear indication that people are watching the debate and remember what Mary Lou was saying. So Owen, I think that's a sense of just the disbelief that some people have that these two parties could be going back in together and they're still struggling to make the rents next week.
Well, look, Joe, thank you very much for the question, and you know the answer to the question yourself. If Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are in government together, there's not going to be any change on housing. And just listen to what they've said over the last number of weeks. Darrell O'Brien has already been out today saying that he wants to give more powers to unelected county managers to allow them to sell off land to private developers even more quickly than they're currently doing at the minute. And that's in the same week, for example, where Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael councillors in South Dublin County Council voted to sell off a very significant piece of land to a private developer for private profit. And Dublin City councillors, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, were voting to rezone land without any guarantee of either social affordable housing on them or proper investment in infrastructure. We had on the streets of the capital only yesterday another death of a young rough sleeper, a man in his late 20s or early 30s. And that's a clear symbol of the chronic failure of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. So the straight answer is, if any other party, if any group of independents form a government with Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, there will be no change. The alternative, as you know, of course, is a government led by Sinn Féin, not only to build the homes that people need, but to cut rents and to freeze rents and to ensure that everybody, especially every single child in the state, has access to secure and affordable accommodation.
There is a big issue now, of course, and I think you were talking about writing to the banks yesterday in relation to, because the people who we were speaking to and the people who are most enthused about talking to Sinn Féin about our policy platform are people who are in a really difficult situation. And now they're faced with a prospect that they might be asked to stay home from work, or their kids might be kept home from school and they have no choice but to stay home from work, and they're afraid the bills are going to keep rising. So what exactly have you asked the central bank and the banks?
Well, look, we've written to the banks and we've also written to the central bank yesterday asking them to allow for deferment of mortgage payments. We're conscious that the impact's already happening. It's happening in the tourism sector, the restaurants, where employers are now starting to put their employees either on reduced hours or on protective notice. So we want to make sure that if that's happening as a result, and we want to protect employees in the first instance, but if that's happening, that people aren't suffering as a result of this issue. So we want to make sure that payments wouldn't need to be made in terms of mortgages for this period, and people wouldn't be penalised as a result of it. We also want to make sure that access to credit, because people may need credit if they're off home at sick and self-isolating, that they wouldn't be charged for the likes of the withdrawal fees. AIB just actually introduced increased the charges for contactless payments, which is bizarre because
well, it goes against the exact policy, even the monetary policy that they said they were pursuing.
And from a health point of view, you want to encourage contactless payments because you're not doing the chip and pin. We've also been speaking to, or we've written to Pascal Donoghue this morning in relation to...
The biggest shareholder in AIB.
We brought that, but we've also written to him in relation to VAT deferrals for businesses. Again, talking about the restaurants, the hotel sector. We need to give them the space and time to recover from this issue over the next couple of months. So there's a suite of measures that need to be introduced that would support individuals, that would support families, that would support businesses, particularly in the regions, to make sure that they're supported during this time, because this is having an impact on health, and that needs to be our focus in the first and foremost, and do those measures that Mary Lou outlined and take a more robust approach. But we also need to make sure that families, their incomes, and businesses that we depend on are actually supported during this process, and we're far too slow in terms of rolling out initiatives in relation to these issues.
I think the key with this as well is that people want to play their part. People want to put themselves in the best situation. This coronavirus is a massive challenge that we are facing, and what we're hearing from people is they want to do their bit, they want to play their part, they want to ensure that they are following good advice, but they need some help. They need to know that the bills are going to be taken care of and that they can actually do the right thing. I'm
told that we're getting tons of questions just in relation to the bank charges, and there's one here from Chris McGuire who's asking, who's saying that these charges affect the poorest within society. Is there anything the government can do in relation to that? And
bank charges are regulated by the central bank, and that's why we wrote to the banks, but we also wrote to the central bank to actually deal with this issue. The central bank regulates them. At this point in time, the central bank also has a role. So, Louise is 100% right. We have to do this as a society, as a nation. But banks also have a role. And see, look, the reality
we own the banks.
That's the point I was saying. The reality is, listen, if I was Minister for Finance at this point in time, AIB and permanent TSB would be in with us, and I can guarantee you there wouldn't be increasing charges at this point in time. They would actually be waiving the charges.
It is actually amazing, though, how they can be so out of touch.
Yeah, and some banks have done this voluntary in England, like in elsewhere, where they're actually waiving the charge, they're allowing access to additional credits, they're refunding charges, they're waiving, they're deferring mortgage payments. So, this isn't. So this is just appropriate.
So you see the way we're saying, and I've heard people, all of us have heard people say, look, we're looking at, you're looking to China, you're looking to Italy, we're looking outside of our own island to to figure out what we need to do to get us through this emergency. And we focus very much on health issues, and like we want people to work from home where it's possible. We certainly know that Aer Lingus and Ryanair have stopped flying in and out of Italy, or they're about to, and that's welcome. But I mean, all traffic on and off the island now, we need to be hard-nosed and we need to monitor it, not to cause panic, but to be orderly and organised and so on. But equally, in terms of financial relief, like we don't have to reinvent the wheel. As Pierce said, you look to other places and they recognise that there has to be reliefs given in terms of mortgage relief, in terms of people's basic ability to live day to day. Like we have to, as Louise says, assist people through this period. And then the politicians have to lead from the front, and we have to be calm, cool, collected, but we also have to be decisive. We can't wimp out on the decisions that need to be taken to keep people safe.
And that requires as well, just like, obviously we oppose the evictions and the legislation that we brought forward a number of occasions.
That's because there's a question there from someone from Carlow in relation to the no consent, no
sale bill.
So does that die now after the last?
No, well, what happens is when a new Dáil, usually what happens is a motion comes forward to bring all these bills that we're going through the process back onto the books. The problem was that the Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil conspired. Even though Fianna Fáil supported this legislation, second stage, a committee, they came together and they're trying to find a way to block this legislation. So they're spending about 150,000 €.
Explain what the legislation will do.
The legislation basically says that you cannot sell, a bank can't sell your mortgage to a vulture fund without your permission. The central bank has this as a rule since 1991. It's still in place, but no bank, it's a voluntary rule, so no bank actually complies with it. We believe we would put it as a mandatory code. So what's happening is Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, as I said, have spent about 150,000 € to get a report done to say how bad this would be for the vultures and people like that. But look, the election has changed things, hopefully now with that momentum for change, that we can actually push this through.
Okay. Owen, I just want to... Okay, so there's Johnny on Twitter who's asking, how are you going to help the likes of me who earn €24,000 a year, travelling from Meath to Dublin city centre for work? Travel is a nightmare. I have to say, one of the culture shocks I've got since coming back to national politics has been the traffic
is crazy.
Getting to Leinster House, or it's actually worse when you're coming here in the morning. This city's bursting at the seams, and a lot of people are actually asking in relation to our housing policy, are we talking about 100,000 houses in Dublin, or are we actually talking about having a regionalised policy for housing in the way in which we need to do for all of these things as well?
Well, the first thing, of course, is the city isn't bursting. In fact, large parts of the city centre are empty, and that's why so many people are living in the commuter belt and have been forced to drive in and out or forced to get the train. So one of the things Sinn Féin would do is that not just in Dublin, in Galway, in Cork, in Waterford, in Athlone, in Mullingar, we'd be ensuring that we have good quality, affordable homes for working families to rent or to buy in our town centres, in our urban centres. What would that mean? People then wouldn't actually have 2-hour commutes to and from work. They'd be able to access the best of quality accommodation in our urban centres and town centres. What we also have is a very ambitious programme of investment in public transport to ensure those people that do have commutes can do so quickly and comfortably, whether it's on buses in rural Ireland or trains in and out of the commuter belt into the city. But the key here is this: government can deliver the best quality apartments and homes to rent for between €700 and €900 in Dublin, more than half the current market price, or for homes to buy in Dublin for less than 250 or less than 200 for brand new homes outside of Dublin. All they have to do is master plan the land, invest in the homes, and people can live close to where they work, close to where they go to school, close to where they socialise. That's what civilised cities do everywhere else in the European Union. We need to do it here. Let's stop the suburban sprawl, build in our urban town centres and our city centres, and make sure it's affordable.
And in our towns and villages, because lots of people don't want to work in Dublin, but they're
we have to mention, was that in Navan?
Johnny, in Meath, yes. So,
in Meath, well, we have to mention Johnny Girk and Darren O'Rourke. They're on it, the train connection to Navan, which is long promised.
And just on that, Matt, we actually recently met the National Transport Authority, and one of the things they said to us is that let's revive the train line through Navan up to Derry and open up the northwest. An eminently sensible project, which means people could travel in that crucial corridor, but it also means the people in Navan who are working in Dublin would have access to good quality train transport where they need it.
Okay. So, tá ceist Gaeilge an inis Lana Rai Pierce le dal?
Yeah, gur maigad hannig ceiste ar Twitter ó Sir agus Gaela, ceiste tá na mé Sinn Féin ag spreagú díú ar an Gaelic le bheith mar hanga ibre in éilean a chuna sinna dhéanamh mé chatí hu agus has ag fóm na Gaeilge agus tían Sir agus Gaela gur maila an fógra Sinn Féin snalta MPP. So gur maigad fáinne sin. Ó hiúin ceiste sa chetal síos dúine mar hapi déile agus de Treasury Parliament sin bhfuil a Gaelic agan mar an caiimiid ceniu ana bhé go pásanta agus rinne sin ceniu riban ta an seo go mé me siú go sé do bhád ní smó Gaelic sa déile agus caiimiid sampla horta ahananne a gohéirí na daoine ag Lord agus ní mai bé bheith cantear spreagún Gaelic agus a bhíonna Gaelic mna bhfuil méid ag Lordte mu chéin so tásúlacham sa go mé a bhád ní smó Gaelic Lordteacham sa
so agus caiimiid Nílam lán léamh a fós ag táim a géirí níos mó clachta dhéanamh atá a dhéanamh ma dhéhil agus sin an rud atá ag gceist agan clachta agus is fear Gaeilge briste ná bhar le
agus theas agam grammatic fólam Gaeilge
agus son agus Louise fresh
ó agus Louise so dhéanamid Virginia Shotty was an party chuid cóirle agus dhéanamid ar gine an Gaeilge ólam agus bíon daoine mar bhí sé teála ag fóm Gaeilge ag mar an kid céim me lena an ar fóm na coppla úsáid agus sin ag caiimiide háneis go dtíon bhile so bitar ar thugann rudí rás be má deú ára
Bei crinne agan trí Gaeilge.
Not enough. But because we're moving on to a subject that probably drove most of us into politics, or certainly is a big part of our politics. We have a number of questions in relation to, I suppose, government and governance, north and south. So I have two questions here for Claire Murphy from Drogheda. Does Sinn Féin in government in the north and the surge in the south make a united Ireland more likely? There's a Christopher Shenu who asks, what is our likelihood to see a united Ireland in our time, and how can we achieve that?
So Claire and Christopher, let me start by saying that, of course, any electoral support, not to mind a surge for Sinn Féin, is of course directed towards building a new Ireland. I mean, that's what we talk with people about all of the time. And yes, it's about ending partition, but it's not about creating, a 26 county state, but making it 32 county wide. This is really a massive opportunity for all of us to do something new. You see, partition in the 1920s was wrong. It's been disastrous. Yeah. It's brought us poverty and emigration and conflict and all of those things. And we now find ourselves now in our generation with an opportunity to fix those things and to recast our country and to do it democratically and peacefully. I think it's just an incredible opportunity. And I listen sometimes to the naysayers saying, we can't do it, we shouldn't do it, this is a dangerous thing to do. This is not, this is an exciting thing to do. This is the opportunity for all of us who believe in social justice, who believe in climate justice, who believe in fair play, who believe in decency, who believe that you work hard and you should have a right to expect a decent life for yourself and for your family, for your children. This is our chance. And can we do it? You bet we can do it. We're going to do it. We're absolutely determined to do it. And that's what's so exciting about the last election, is that it opened up that window and that opportunity even further for us. And of course, Sinn Féin is in the executive, in the power sharing government in the north. So those who say we can't be in government, we already are, newsflash. And we look to influence and to shape politics here. And then we look to drive the project on an island-wide basis. We live on a small island. You've heard me say this before. Yeah. This is not Australia. This is Ireland. This is a small island with tight communities. And I believe that we can do anything that we set our minds to. So of course we can do it.
Can I just ask you a question, Pierce? I'm just thinking, because I know it's probably similar in Monaghan, but when you're talking to the old Fianna Fáil stalwarts in Donegal, are they saying the same as the guys in Monaghan are saying about Micheál Martin's attitude? Micheál Martin has essentially brought Fianna Fáil to the position where they're the anti-United Ireland party. And what does that mean in terms of the debate? Because we need those guys to be part of the conversation as well, of course.
I think in on the issue of United Ireland, the people have moved way beyond much of the political parties and the establishment. Micheál Martin has obviously taken a very personal position in relation to this issue, which is completely out of kilter with what I would believe is grassroots. I wondered whether it was just members in Donegal, or if that's reflected right across the area.
Well, it's reflected in their vote, I suppose.
Yeah, it is. Look, the reality is that more and more people in the political parties are recognising that there's an eventuality to the issue of a referendum in Irish unity, that we need to prepare for it. As part of the discussions that we're doing in terms of government formation and that government for change, this is an issue that is on the agenda. And there isn't any resistance. Just there isn't any resistance because people know. And again, opinion polls are showing that. They just look at the polls here in the south. 75% of the people want to see Ireland united and the opportunities that come with a new Ireland. So, look, sometimes political leaders have taken positions for reasons. And
you've got a compliment here from Alan Carroll. I don't know if he's actually from New York or not, but he says it's fantastic to hear our national language being spoken. We're getting literally hundreds of live comments coming in, and many thanks for them. Want to talk about disabilities, because the issue of concern for a lot of people with disabilities, their families, in relation to the challenges that are facing them, also their carers, of course. I have a couple of just comments, Louise, that you might address. Nicole from Cork has a question: what is Sinn Féin going to do about the lack of services and counselling for people with autism? Janice Gilbride from Bonboy in Cavan, a constituent of myself and Pauline Tully. Hiya, Janice. She's asking the panel what they intend to do for kids with disabilities and for their carers. She also asks around the issue of waiting lists for therapy, which is a particular issue in Cavan, Monaghan, which in some instances are into 4-year waiting lists. And there's Rhonda Sherlock is asking, again, in relation to our policies regarding children with special needs. Rhonda's son has autism. The school he's in has very little resource hours. He gets a slot time of 15 minutes a week. So I suppose that's just to give a personal story of what people are facing.
Okay, so thanks to Nicole, to Janice and to Rhonda for the questions. Can I say to you, 15 minutes once a week, I mean, that's no way for a child to thrive.
It's actually insulting, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. And, when we go out and we talk to people and we see them in our own communities, what they tell us is they want to see the services delivered. They want the government to notice that they're struggling, and they believe that their struggles are going completely unheeded. So when people came out and they voted for change, they voted for a change in government, they voted for a change in policy, but they also voted for a government that's going to be on their side and to actually listen to their concerns. So, it's not right that a child has to wait 33 months just for an assessment. It's not right that parents are at home trying to scrape together the money, very often getting into debt, putting themselves into a huge amount of debt just to get therapies for their kids. So we've a very well worked out, fully costed plan. It involves putting resources into the communities, putting the therapists into the communities, tackling the waiting lists, not by purchasing from the private sector, but tackling the waiting lists by investing in the public service, by investing in public servants, in therapists who will be available in the community and who will address those needs. I'm a parent, I'm a mum, I'm a granny as well, and all I want is for my kids and and the same as any parent want. They want their kids to be able to thrive, to live their best life, to do well, and some kids need a little bit of help with that. That's fine. What we need to do is ensure that it's there. There's no dignity for parents in having to beg for services. It's not right, it's not fair, and it shouldn't be happening.
Because I know, as I mentioned, and particularly around assessments and waiting times, it's crazy stuff in Cavan. You're dealing in some cases 4-year-olds told it'll be another 4 years before they actually. Is it the same
all over? Yeah,
it's the same all over.
It's 33 we would have got a sense that it was
it's
more
33
of
months in Fingal in North Dublin for them. They wait 33 months, and they have the cheek now to call this early intervention. It's not early intervention if you have to wait.
That's delayed intervention.
Yeah, exactly. And what happens then is kids fall further back. They don't get the chances, because they need a little bit of support. They fall further back, they need more support, and the supports are not there. So what we want to see are trained therapists working in the communities that are there to deliver the services. We also want to see more special needs assistance so that kids who need a bit of a hand in school can get that assistance, and they can do well in school and they can participate in school, because that's all that any parent wants for their kids. That's all that any child wants for themselves.
Do you know, one of the most heartbreaking things is when you meet parents, and we've all met them, who say, I can't get a school place for my child. child on the spectrum, and we have nowhere to send this child. We go all across the country, and you will not go into a village or a town without meeting those parents, without meeting those situations. And parents say to you, so what is this all about? This is about resources, prioritising resources, and where you spend your money. And nobody's pretending that there's a magic money tree. There clearly isn't.
It's about prioritising.
Yeah, I mean, resources aren't infinite. We all get that. But we make very different decisions in terms of what you prioritise, who you prioritise, where you spend your money, and then how you, in a very fair and equitable way, raise the taxes to pay for that. But it's a matter of disgrace. It's an embarrassment and a disgrace to us that we have children left behind in plain sight. The system knows, the government knows, and yet this persists. I mean, that was one of the big change items that came up on the ground. I think we can all agree when we were out on the campaign.
And that's one of the features of the elections. People just weren't talking about. They weren't just talking about the problems. They were asking us, did we have solutions?
For the solutions.
On that,
exactly.
now you may not just have the specific policies on that, but
right.
when we're dealing with carers, there's Susanna Lepinkia, and just her case is one that I always have sympathy with, because she says her mother is a full-time carer for her partner who has dementia, and currently they feel that there is no support for them, so they want to know what Sinn Féin's plans are for dementia care in Ireland is.
Okay. So the dementia care teams are not available currently, but there is a plan. So what we have done is we have put the resources as part of our alternative budget and as part of our manifesto. We put the resources into dementia care. So again, it's about having those therapies available in the community, but it's also about respite, because people who care for their loved ones, they need a break as well. I was a union official before I was elected, and I've said this many times, but if the carers in this state were to go on strike for half a day, this place
here's
function.
one comment I just want to. Marion Mulvey, I'm disabled, my husband is my carer, we have 2 daughters on a housing waiting list for years. What about people like us? I wish I was out working, but I can't. So there's somebody with a disability, their partner is caring for them, saving the state a fortune by caring for them.
And also in housing policy, Marion, people with disabilities have always been left to the very back of the queue. So 2 of the things we've said very clearly is, first of all new social housing stock, a minimum of 7% of all of that stock, has to be fully accessible for people with disabilities, particularly people who have wheelchairs. But we've gone beyond that and said we would reform the entire planning system to ensure a far greater level of disability access will be required for all new buildings. Currently, under the rules, for a building to be determined to be disability accessible, it just has to have a wheelchair accessibility for a visitor, not for somebody who lives there. So first of all, on social housing, we need the 7%. But then for all new housing, we need what's called universal design, so that no matter what happens when you move into the house, throughout the course of your life, if your needs change, that house will meet your needs at every point in your life cycle.
I think, Pierce, you've done a little bit of work on this. There's a DJ Linehan is talking about cutbacks to SNA numbers in our schools. Then he believes that needs to be looked at. He's saying that some of the schools in his area have been cut by 30% under the new scheme.
Yeah, well, look, again, it ties into the issues that we're talking about, children with disabilities, with autism, and the supports that they need to thrive and reach their full potential. There shouldn't be cutbacks in terms of SNAs. What we need is actually an increased number of SNAs, and that's what we're providing for, an increased number of resource hours, and obviously to make sure that the supports are there. Like, there's a huge number of, and one of the things we talked about in the public meetings is that the issue of disabilities didn't get the attention
in the election,
the election, and it's one of our big regrets, because we have a very ambitious programme there. Like the cost, the support we were putting out is about 1.2 billion euro, and that's about looking at the supports there, the cost of disability. It's about the social welfare payments that need to be increased, but it's also about all of the other stuff that we talk about, the assessments, the therapies, the respite hours, really transforming this. Because the thing I take away with, particularly meeting with parents with children with disabilities or on the spectrum, is that they're just exhausted. It's not caring for their children that they're exhausted for, they're exhausted battling the state every day. Even this week, just this week, even today, there's a court case in relation to access to education in 2020, and that shouldn't be. Parents shouldn't have to fight the state, take them to court to get basic access for your children to get an education, which is a constitutional right.
One of the things I loved that you did, Lou, was whenever you came into areas, when you did the sort of the round tables as opposed to the public meetings where you actually brought the sectors in and the disability sector. So obviously people's focus now is on, getting over the issue of coronavirus and make sure people are kept safe. But I think it's something you should do again, just get back into the communities.
Absolutely. And what we want to do is, as you know, Matt, is to have an ongoing conversation. Like, we can't deliver the kind of change that we need to deliver unless we are consistently in touch with people, and unless we are consistently not just coming out and telling you what our plans and our ideas are, but we actually have to listen to what's coming back at us. Because you know what I find, wherever you go, I was in Coolock the other day with Denise Mitch, and I met just a small group of activists, but they could tell you all of the things that they have achieved all around Darndale and Edenmore and Coolock. And the gas thing is, where there's a need in a community, it'll be identified first by the community, and the community are the experts in their community, and they will tell you this is what we need to do. And 9 times out of 10, they're just looking for a level of resource. They're listening for a listening ear and for a policy intervention, but they'll do the heavy lifting themselves, and none more so than people who live with disability or who are parents or partners and so on. And you're right, Pierce, it is exhausting. One parent said to me that the moment that you have a child with a special need or a disability, you are in for a lifetime of battles with the state. Everything becomes a battle.
And I don't know why the state does it, because the state never wins. These people are so resilient. They're fighting for their own kids.
As Louise
so
said, but as Louise said, they're saving. It's the smartest money you will ever invest. The smartest money ever.
Just to say that, like as part of our negotiations, obviously we're meeting with the other parties and all the rest, but we're also having these conversations. We'll be reading all your comments on the different platforms, but we're also engaged in a series of meetings with representatives.
With sectors,
we've been meeting with the trade unions, we've been meeting with representatives of older people, we've been meeting with the disability sector, the education sector. That's all been happening, and a lot more in the last week, and that happens behind closed doors, but that's going
This is
continue.
the same issue we've touched on, but this is coming from Carrick Macross, so I'm reading it. Marianne Nugent is watching us live, and thanks a million, Marianne. She says that there is serious reform needed on the disability and care sector. Marianne's daughter has to wait up to 2 years to be seen by a child development team. No therapy or services of any kind in that period of time. Now, we need to be honest with these people. We get into government, their lives aren't going to change overnight. What's going to change is a focus of government.
Yes.
In terms
Well, I tell you, the one thing that will change is the people who are sitting in government buildings will be listening to them and not ignoring them. So when we were out talking to people, we're back out talking to people again. We're doing this, and we are delighted that so many people are interacting with us, because for us it's not just something you do at election time and then you switch it off and then come back again. It's something that needs to be ongoing. So that will change. That will very definitely change. When we are in government buildings, we will be listening and we will be responding. But we have the plans to recruit the therapists. We have the plans to put the therapies in the community where they are needed and ensure that the services are there to give the kids a chance to thrive.
Okay, I want to move on to health, so I'll give you 2 questions at once, even though they're slightly different, and others might come in on the first point. Actually, that's what I'll do. I'll take David from Wexford first, because this is a particular question around what Sinn Féin will do around the provision and implementation of child mental health services around the country. It's 2020, he says, and when a child is admitted to hospital mental health service, they are admitted to an adult psychiatric unit. I don't think that happens in many places in Europe, by the way. There is no proper psychiatric units or hospitals for young people or children in Ireland. And when children display these issues, it's often misdiagnosed. So it's just a very specific question.
Yeah, okay, so that's an absolute scandal. Not only is it traumatic for the child, but it's really tough for the staff that are working in that area, because they're not necessarily trained. So what we want to see are the child and adolescent mental health teams that are envisaged by Vision for Change. We want to see them staffed. Currently, they're running at around 48% of staff, and so we want to see nurses and key workers appointed to these teams and put these teams into the community, into the primary care centres, and ensure that they are available for people. We also want kids to have access to a counsellor when they're in school, so that they have age-appropriate mental health interventions. This is about making small changes, but that will make a huge difference. So having a counselling service available to address the needs of a child in school is so important. But putting a child into an adult psychiatric facility is not done in any other civilised country, and it is a shame. It is an absolute shame. It's horrible for the kids, and it's really tough for the staff as well. That absolutely has to stop.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, Pierce, I'm going to put this to you. It's healthcare related, but it's Dean on Twitter, and I think there are thousands of Deans, because Dean's a nurse currently working in London. He wants to know, what are you going to do to bring more nurses and healthcare workers like himself home? I've my cousins and others in Melbourne. They're scattered all over the globe. They're working really hard. How do we get them into our hospitals?
We know them all. The first of all is we lay out very clearly the type of ambitious investment we are going to do in terms of dealing with our healthcare system. That can be done over a 5-year period. It's a huge amount of investment. It's bringing the pressure off the system, making sure that people aren't working in the type of environment which is hugely stressful. It won't change overnight, but we know that we can actually fix the system, and there will be huge improvements within 5 years. The second thing is we're going to end, and this can be done in the first year, we're going to end the pay parity in relation to disparity in relation to public health workers, which affects the likes of Dean and other frontline workers in the health system and indeed the education system. Pay inequality should never have been a case, and inequality shouldn't be accepted in any form of society, and definitely not in terms of frontline workers who we need back here working. So there are two things that we can do. There's also other packages which needs to encourage people back to make sure that we have our capacity in our hospitals. So as we open the closed hospital beds, the 1,500 that's required, new beds over the next 5 years, we need the staff to there, and that means there has to be a package to entice them home. And
I'm just conscious that this is the longest that Ona Bryn has been in a studio and silent.
You'd be surprised, Matt Carty, let me tell you.
But clearly cost of living issues affect people like Dean as well.
Actually, during the canvass I met 2 nurses, both were sisters, and both were considering moving to Saudi Arabia. And the primary reason for them was the cost of childcare and the cost of housing. I met teachers who were actually protesting for pay equality, and one of the things they were saying is not just the poor wages, but accommodation and childcare were the reasons they were leaving. If people look at our manifesto, they won't just see a very, very ambitious programme in terms of affordable rent and purchase accommodation, but also to cut the cost of childcare by 66% over 5 years. €5 billion we would invest to ensure that people have access to good quality childcare, where the staff themselves are getting paid better wages, better investment in the service, but year on year people will be paying significantly less. So not only do we want to invest in making the working conditions of nurses and teachers better, we want them to have a good quality of life, and that means affordable rent, affordable homes, affordable childcare, and let them enjoy their life in the towns and cities and parishes where they were born.
And on cost of living, there is Connor from Wexford. Can a new government help young people to get out and be able to get the jobs they want to fulfil their dreams? For any young person trying to start off, they'll need at least 78,000 to get on the road, and public transportation in this country is so far behind. So I think that's talking about not only getting jobs, but actually maybe starting companies as well, and giving incentives. But housing has to be part of that as well.
Yeah, of course.
It does, yeah, but also transport. I mean, for example, if you look at rural links transport all over the west of Ireland, it's a hugely valuable service, both in terms of access to transport and social inclusion. But only €15 million is spent on it annually. So simple interventions to increase investment in vital public services actually improve the quality of people's lives and reduce those costs.
And I think Connor's also talking about the fact that that's how much it costs to get a car under your, €3,000 for a car, and then $4,000 for insurance, and that's one of the key things that we want to do to drive down the cost and the gouging. We've a piece of legislation. It was signed into law by the President, Michael D. Higgins, on the 26th of December, just after Christmas. The Minister for Finance is still refusing to give it its signature and enact it, even though everybody supports it.
So what happens now? Is that
it's just waiting?
Minister can still sign it?
He's saying it's passed. Everything's passed. He just needs to sign it. Everybody wants it. It's very consumer friendly. It will transform insurance.
Well, not everybody.
Well, the insurance industry doesn't want it. The insurance industry doesn't want it, but it's a win-win. It's a huge issue. We've also in a second piece of legislation in terms of driving down insurance costs, and we've ready for that. We've got that ready to go as well, and that's one of the campaigns that we want to continue.
Can I say, Piers Doherty is to be commended for the work that he did, and there's lots of people talked about it, but I have to say Piers took that and he went for it, and for my money, Pierce would be the person that I would want in government fighting my corner when it comes not just to the insurance industry, but lots of vested interests. Let's face it, have had it all their own way for far, far too long.
Yeah, there's a number of things that need to be done. So your bill is really important, or act, when the minister signs it. It's really important, but there's other things that need to happen. So what's next?
Well, we have another piece of legislation, so that's in relation to price gouging that's going on. It's been banned in most of America. It's considered to be banned in Britain. We've legislation now to ban that here. There's a number of other things we want to do in terms of stamping out fraud, dealing with the common duty of care, which deals with kind of the swing gate scenarios where people think that they can go on a swing in a hotel with, I won't say too much, but you know, we all know the story and think that then they can sue. Yeah, maybe I've said enough. But look, we've plenty of examples where cases that are before the courts that shouldn't be before the courts. And the problem here is that it's not a case that sometimes that they're winning, but it costs a lot to defend those cases for small businesses. And it's not just businesses, it's our GA, it's our community presenters, community festivals and all the rest. So we take on the industry head on. We don't agree with any of their spin. We take them on, we deal with it, we stamp out the profit gouging, and that can be done if the political will is there, and that's what we have in spades.
That's good. Well, we need to keep out of there. I really like this question from Clive Foyle, who's asking, how do you keep our ministers' feet on the ground to make sure they do not lose touch with reality and the lives of ordinary people? I suppose that's particularly in relation to the executive at the moment, but also if we're in government here. So how are you going to control all these guys if they're in cabinet, and how do we ensure that our ministers in the north don't just lose reality from the people who vote for them, which is the experience that they've had with other governments?
Yeah, sure. So Klaus, I suppose we need to say that I said earlier on that we're activists because that's what we are, and Sinn Féin is a huge and a growing party. I mean, how many people joined during the election? 4,000?
4,000 in the last couple of weeks, and
okay.
7,000 applied.
So we're a national organisation.
Another
we're a growing
because everybody's signing up.
Yeah, and I'm sure all of you are going to sign up. So, you know, the first thing that keeps everybody's feet on the ground is your own membership. I can assure you, I get away with nothing. Nothing. If anyone thought I was losing the run of myself as party leader, I'd be soon told it very directly. We're a very democratic organisation. Even though we've grown much bigger, still generally speaking, people tend to know each other pretty well. I like that. I think we need to protect that kind of atmosphere and ethos. And then our Ordesh sets policy. It happens openly, it happens democratically. And you see all of us as elected representatives, we're part of the debate, we'll argue our corner, we'll make our point. But then we accept that when the collective decision is made, that the collective wisdom is greater than any individual wisdom, and then together we go and we try and drive forward the kind of politics we believe in. So I think that's the big leveller. And I also think it's in the personality of Republicans not to be deferential. So don't worry, if any of them are getting ahead of themselves, because they won't need me to call them and say, you know, wind it in a bit. They'll be told very, very directly by the people who work around them and by people in their own communities too.
But here's what you also need. You need to encourage civil society to be critical partners of a government for change. So, for example, when Fianna Fáil were last in government, they decimated the community and voluntary sector, particularly the grassroots community sector, because they were critical. I could recount endless stories of Owen Murphy and his colleagues trying to silence, for example, homeless advocacy organisations because they were critical of the government's failures on housing. So what we're saying to the advocacy sector, what we're saying to the trade union sector, what we're saying to citizens is, come with us on this journey, but hold us to account. And for example, if I was Minister for Housing and if the NGO sector and homelessness felt we weren't doing enough, shout from the rooftops for us to do more. Because what you don't want is to be friends with civil society when you're in opposition and do what Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael do, try and silence them when you're in government. We want that creative tension to remain, so our membership will hold us to account, but civil society and ordinary citizens will also hold us to account and demand we honour the pledges that we made during the election, and that's the way we'll succeed.
I think the public meetings as well is another example. Just so if we go back to Cork in 3 months' time and there's 1,000 people back in Cork, they're the people that are going to tell us that you've lost the run of yourselves, and get back.
But also we said to people, like we said very directly, and I said on all our behalves, I said, look, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have had it all their own way for almost a century and they're not giving up. That's the reality. They want to hold the power and they don't want to let anyone else in. I said, and we said, there's a better way of government and that we can deliver change and we can really drive progress in this country. And so we asked, give us the chance. We asked you for the chance. We believe that you voted for us to give us that chance. And then we said, then judge us on delivery. So we would never imagine that we're entitled to anything. We're not. Or that we're above criticism. We're not. Either through sectors, through that kind of critical tension there, or more directly from people. Like we would expect that people who vote for us have expectations of us, and we would expect that if we fall short of those, that you tell us, and we're not going to take that as some form of betrayal.
We're getting tons. We've only five minutes, so sorry to cut across you. But this is an interesting one.
First time, Matt.
First time today. Susan Bulger Dunn is asking, so will our elected TDs consider opening more constituency offices across the country? I think it's fair to say we'll open as many as we can and as resources will allow.
Yeah.
The other part of our question, though, is more monthly clinics in some of the smaller towns. So it is the perennial question for TDs. Do you spend your time in your office dealing with the cases that you have and trying to, or do you actually go out and so I think we all try to get a balance between the two.
Yeah, you have to
but
do
should
both.
we be doing more constituency clinics, Pierce?
We did them every so often, but we find that if somebody phones up and saying, when are you going to be in the clinic, and they say, well, we'll be there on Friday, they're dealing with you on the phone and you're getting the issue resolved on the Monday or the Tuesday, or you're starting to resolve the issue. Look, what we're doing here today, I think, is a bit of the future as well. People are contacting us, and it's challenging sometimes because people are contacting you in your office, out in your clinics, by phone, by email, then by messenger,
I get a lot of
Twitter.
criticism because I don't check my Facebook Messenger. So a lot of people, apparently I should be.
But can I also say this, and it's something that's, and it's easier for urban TDs to do. Don't just knock doors at election time. Knock doors all year round, even if it's for half an hour or an hour. People will come to the constituency clinic when they have problems or issues. But there's a wider section of public opinion out there, people who are listening to this debate. And knock a door once or twice a week, because that way you get a sense of how people are feeling, how they're reacting, and that then informs what you do on health, on housing, on childcare, on Irish unity. So I'm a big believer in canvassing all year round.
Absolutely.
Because then nobody can say to me, oh, and we only seen you at election time. They're fed up seeing us out
Some
in Dublin
people would
Midwest.
say it anyway, though. I have my experience, but absolutely, we should try and get out as much as possible. Okay, so we have to, I'm told, tie up. We're on to the last few minutes. But thank you very much and sincerely, everybody, for watching. We're getting some really positive feedback. I'm going to give you just a little sense of them, and you might know some of these guys. So Selena Callahan, thanks yous for this live, Facebook Live, everything getting addressed. Emma Burke says, fantastic idea. I really feel that Sinn Féin have provided many examples of what progressive politics should be about, dialogue and transparency. Stuart Roberts said, love it, more than one way to skin a cat, an online forum brought to you in the comfort of your own home. Stuart, it was delightful to be in your home this evening. So just to say thanks to everybody who was involved in this process. Thank you to Mary Lou and all the team for suggesting this idea when it came clear that we wouldn't be in a position to have a series of public meetings. They will take place, we just don't know when.
Well, look, we'll be back out as soon as we can, but for now we have to work very hard and mind each other to get through this coronavirus emergency. Look after yourselves and your families, but the moment that we can, we will be back out in your town, in your village, certainly in your county, to talk to you, but more importantly to listen to you. So thanks for being with us this evening, and congratulations to Matt.
Okay, so I'm going to give you just a couple of seconds just to round up. So Louise, at the end of the day, people are really concerned about coronavirus and the health service, whether the health service is up for it or not. But I suppose our message is take care of yourselves, your family. And
absolutely, mind yourselves, mind your family. Heed the medical advice, and also, I want to say fair play to our healthcare workers, because they are the ones who are out there on the front line. I know that people are nervous, I know that they are anxious, but rest assured we are listening to you, and we will ensure that your voice is heard at the top table, at the highest level, and that your concerns are addressed.
Owen, people are asking when the next Facebook Live is, so I'm allowing you to make an executive decision.
I was thinking you're going to end up in RT replacing Ryan Tubridy.
No, I wouldn't. Yeah. You're not giving us a date. We'll try and do one as quickly as possible for that person who asked.
Can I ask people maybe just to leave your comments in terms of how you thought it went, how you think maybe we can improve, and who you would like to see on the panel the next time?
There's thousands of questions coming in. But Mary Lou, the next step for Sinn Féin, we don't know where we're going to be.
So look, the talks on government formation are still ongoing. We are in there fighting your corner. We are absolutely determined that despite the best efforts of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael together to keep us out and to keep you out, that we are going to push and push. And whatever happens and whatever way this lands, be assured of this, that your vote mattered, that it really mattered that you came out and you gave us a mandate for change. And we will be true to that. We will deliver for you. We will do that day in, day out. And we will have one of these online meetings again very, very soon. And of course, as Piers says, leave your comments and tell us how we can improve.
And there has been thousands of comments that we just couldn't get to in terms of across all the platforms, and we will be going through them all, the critical as well as the positive, because we want to get feedback from every source. Thanks to the team here that have involved the production. We hope the sound and the vision was all right, but we will be back. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and everybody else. I really enjoyed this, I have to say, and I look forward to being back in our communities, online and in the form of public meetings, whatever we can think of. If it means that we can improve our communication with the people who entrusted us with their vote, then we're going to do it. It's long fun.
Good